Hello, and welcome to the Zero to Hired podcast, the show that helps struggling job seekers find a career that's right for you. In every episode, we have one mission: to provide you with unique tips and strategies from leading industry experts that will get you in front of hiring managers. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Zero to Hired podcast, and today we have Derek Darch.
Hi.
Derek has a business of commerce in the human resources management from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology. During a co-op in his final year, he found a passion for determining employer needs and assisting students by coaching them on the intricacies of finding gainful employment. After being hired full-time with the YMCA Services Division, he became involved with coaching youth on leadership, life skills, and employment preparation. Now he prepares graduates of the NPower Canada program break into the IT sector and provides career advice for entry and mid-level IT professionals. Please help me welcome Derek.
Hi,
Derek.
everyone.
Hey, Derek. Welcome, man. This is awesome. Derek, we were just having a quick conversation on what got you started into this field and what brings you to where you are today. And then we'll get into the backstory. But the goal today is really to help our audience understand, what are some of the challenges that you're facing. And Derek's the expert here. So we're going to get the expert to give you the information you want, because Connell and I can only do so much. But, it's when we reach out, we connect with other experts. That's when we're getting the most value. So Derek, let's get right into this. So you were talking about your backstory a little bit. So if you could share a little bit of that with our audience here, they can help understand, what got you to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, of course. So I started off going to UOIT for a bachelor's in human resource management. So go Ridgebacks.
Nice plug there.
Yeah, right. I have to get them in when I can. And through that, they offered me a co-op opportunity in my third year. And so they kind of approached me with it, saying, we know that this isn't directly HR, or we know that this isn't exactly a generalist role. It's very specific in one area. But would you be interested in doing it? So I looked over the job description and I saw that it was mainly interacting with employers, recruiting for small to mid-range employers within the region. And I wasn't quite sure if that was really for me, but I saw it as an opportunity. I kind of took it, and through that, I really kind of gained an appreciation for helping clients or youth kind of go from an uncertainty to employment. So
is this something that you were actually interested in doing at the beginning?
No, actually, not at all, unfortunately. It was something that, not only would it help me get my degree, but it would also kind of give me more experience in that field. And I wasn't quite too sure if that was where I wanted to go, but I didn't want to say no to something and then regret it later on. So I kind of just took that plunge to gain those kinds of skills. And I'm glad that I did.
No, it's a benefit for everybody else that you did take that
hopefully.
Plunge. So you've seen this. So you were telling me you had a light workload of 300 people that you were working with. So you want to just tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of managed all that?
Yeah, of course. So working with about 300 youths. So these people would come in either from high school or post-secondary, and they'd be looking for summer work. And so what I would do is I would coach them in how to do things like resume writing, job searching, interview techniques. And then I would also work with employers who were looking to hire in that area and connect them with youth who are interested in those areas. So if it was lifeguarding or summer camps, things like that, I would connect those employers based on the interests of the youth and really kind of hope to foster that kind of relationship and that employment.
Excellent. So I guess going through the process of interviewing people or getting them ready, what did you see as some of the challenges that they brought to the table or some of their concerns or things that they were trying to overcome?
Yeah, of course. So I would say the most common concern would really kind of revolve around not knowing how to job search. So they would come to me and they would say, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, but I have no idea how to get there. And so I would talk to them about utilizing networks, being able to, job search effectively to find those types of positions, and what that actually means. So going above and beyond, just applying to things on Indeed, or that kind of passive application story that you hear quite often. The next one that you would hear would be interview skills. So people would come to me and they'd say, either I've had a lot of interviews and it's never moved forward, or I haven't had any interviews, and so the first one that I get, I'm very nervous and I don't know how to prepare for that.
So what did you do to get them ready? So let's focus on the first one, where people were having difficulty getting, I guess, the interview, right? So what would you recommend as a way to prepare them for that?
So I think the first thing that we kind of need to look at is understanding what those roles are, and kind of being able to see how our skills can transfer into that. And a lot of times that's through resume writing. So understanding what our skills are and being able to communicate them, so that when we find those applications or when we find those job postings, we know how to correctly sell ourselves.
Okay.
Other areas are, well, how do you find those, right? A lot of people will, kind of just go on Indeed and they just search camp counselor, Greater Toronto area. That's actually one of the least effective ways of doing it. Go look for job fairs that are happening that will get you in front of decision makers. Network with people. You never know who in your family or who in your friends list actually have those kinds of connections that don't even know that you're job searching, those kinds of things. So utilizing networks is a really great one as well. And just kind of going out there and making sure that you're actively looking in the right places. I know a lot of people are quite scared to do cold calling or things like that, but that's actually a really great way to find out if employers are actually hiring, when they're hiring, and what kind of things you can do to prepare for that when they do.
So this is really good. So you touched on job fairs, and I want to dig into that just a little bit, because there seems to be quite a few of them, and I know a lot of people go to them being very unsuccessful in having anything. So whether it's an interview, a contact with somebody, I find people who go to these type of events, they take their resume out of their back pocket, they hand it to somebody, they expect something to happen. So if you want to make your job fair experience a rich one, what would you recommend for that?
I would personally recommend as much preparation as possible. Research, if it's a multiple employer event, research which ones you actually want to be making those connections with, and then create a tailored resume that's for that. Understanding who's going to be there, and then network with them in order to discuss those types of opportunities.
So as a candidate, where would I find that type of information? So I know at a job fair it'll list the organizations that'll be there, but how do I know specifically which people to connect with?
Yeah, so typically you can go on a company website. Sometimes they'll have a staff directory that will involve you in that way. You could also go onto LinkedIn, which is a really great one that I suggest people do, regardless of if it's a job fair or an open interview, and search for which people typically would go for that. So things like recruiters, HR, talent acquisition officers are typically good, safe bets for people who might be there, as well as kind of just being able to get more information on that company and that organization, so that you have something to talk about once you meet them face to face.
So Connell and I, one of the things we talk about is actually setting up a Google alert for organizations that you're interested in working for. And like that, you can see what's in the media in terms of that company and what they're doing. And it also helps you understand what kind of challenges they're facing. And those are the type of things you bring to the conversation that changes the dialogue, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. If you go to a recruiter or a representative of that organization and you start talking about how you are a solution to those types
accent,
of
accent.
problems, that they start to see you more as an asset rather than just someone coming and asking for a job. So those types of details are extremely beneficial to have. Even knowing where a company is going to be going in the next 5 years
For sure.
is another way to open that type of dialogue or any type of news. A news segment that talks about what kind of involvement they have in the community is always a great way to learn more about the organization, but also be able to connect with the people of that organization.
Okay, so what kind of advice and information would you give to someone who might not necessarily have the experience an organization is looking for, but is very interested in participating and being part of that organization? What would you tell? So I'm a candidate. I'm sitting across from you. I'm like, hey, Derek, I'm stuck right now. I don't have the experience that I need, or I'm fairly new to the market. What do you suggest that I do? Because I really want to work with a company ABC.
So one thing that I would recommend would be doing something called informational interviewing. So a lot of times when we're looking at job postings from any company, and it can be a top 5 bank, it can be one of the top 50 employers, it could even be a mom and pop shop. Being able to ask those types of questions in that type of environment can give you a lot more information about what types of things they do look for. I would also kind of recommend, understanding that a job posting is a wish list, and that, I tell this to my clients all the time. I say, for the amount of money that they're going to pay you, that all those requirements probably aren't too feasible. So understanding that as long as you have the majority of those, so let's say a 70% rating, or even maybe 80 if you want to be extremely ambitious.
Very ambitious. 80%.
Yeah, as long as you have those, and you can communicate, how your skills effectively transfer over that, is really key to being able to match the requirements that they're looking for.
Actually, we look at it like a grocery list, right?
Yeah.
And you usually have the most important items at the top of the list, and then everything else. If you grab it, fantastic. If you don't grab it, then you're okay. You won't get yelled at when you get home. So yeah, no, same type of thing.
I always get yelled at when I come home.
Okay, yeah, well, so do I. I'm always texting the wife saying, "Hey, do I need this or what brand?" Anyways, but talking about the grocery list, the most important things I've always found is that they're always at the top. Like, these are the things I need to have for you to be able to do your job, and then all these other things are bonus, right? Yeah. So someone who doesn't have experience in terms of volunteering, would you recommend that as another way of learning about an organization? Because I know a lot of organizations run a lot of big corporate events. CIBC does the Run to Conquer Cancer. The Princess Margaret does the Ride to Conquer Cancer. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think volunteering is a great way to get your foot in the door. Not only is it going to look good on a resume, it's going to build up those skills that you're going to need to move forward, but it's also a really great way to start building those connections. So when we talk about things like informational interviews with an organization, it becomes a lot easier once you actually know them, or once you're able to chat with them over coffee.
So the goal. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the goal to an informational interview is not about asking about a job. It's not about passing on a resume, right? It's really just to gain information from the person that you're sitting with.
Yeah, exactly. So really, you should never be asking for a job in an informational interview. It catches the interviewer off guard in most times. But the key point is to go into it with certain questions that are going to benefit you. So whether or not that's how do you get into this organization, or what type of certifications, education, experience should I have?
So do you have like one or two standard questions that you would prepare your people with to go to these informational
I
sessions
actually
with?
have 500.
Okay, 500.
So
We don't need 500. We've only got 30 minutes for this show. But, is there like the top 5 questions that you think everybody needs to ask going into these type of informational sessions?
Yeah, I think the first one should always be to ask about what their experience has been. So where have they been? Where have they gone? And where did they see themselves going?
Mm-hmm.
It's always great to talk about oneself. That's typically where you get a lot of the cues for additional questions, and it's really enlightening to be able to hear other people's experience of the labor market. Another question that I would ask is typically, what skills do they find are key for entering a position or entering a company, and then how that looks. And what I mean by that is if they ask you, well, we need someone who has excellent time management skills. Okay, well, what time management skills do you use that translates over that your employees use as well? Those types of things are really great to get an idea about what things you should be investing in, which things you shouldn't be investing in, and really where your efforts should be going.
Okay. So that's 2 questions.
That's 2.
Yeah, that's 2.
All right, you want 5?
Okay, you can give me 3. That works too.
All right. The next question that I would always ask, and this one's more, towards the end, would be, do you know of anyone who would be great to sit and have a coffee with?
Mm-hmm.
Utilize their network to benefit you as well, and they'll probably do the same. So you want to keep that conversation going. So things like requesting to connect on LinkedIn, as well as any type of referral to someone else who might have additional information would be really great, and it keeps it keeps you in that mode of seeking out other connections.
Yeah. Oh, so this is great. So you're going in, you're really learning about them, you're understanding what they need, and then you're staying connected. With the informational interview, do you ever advise people to do follow-ups?
Yeah, of course.
And how often, and what should they do in those follow-ups?
Well, I think it really depends on the candidate and what the candidate's looking to kind of get out of the experience. If you're looking to stay connected in order to build up your networks, then I would say it can be as easy as engaging in conversations on LinkedIn.
Yes,
so
that's
you'll have individuals who post opinion pieces or things that they believe in or heavily endorse, and encouraging that kind of communication. So read that article, have your own opinion, and don't be afraid to state that. As long as it's professional. So
yes,
those
always
types of
keep
ways,
it professional.
Yes,
always
yes.
keep it professional.
Those types of things, allow you to remain in contact with them without actually trying.
And sometimes it doesn't even take a lot. Sometimes you just you learn something about the person, you understand a particular interest that they have, and then you share a piece of information with them that you think might be useful. So if you read an article on something, or you learn a little bit about their organization, or just something they say in passing, it's those. And I find the greatest, deepest relationships that you build are the ones where you're feeding specific things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's understanding, who that person is, and then, not necessarily going out to find those things, but just having that in the back of your head, and following up with an article saying, "Hey, I read this article. I thought it was something that would be right up your alley. What do you think about it?"
Yeah, and well, so sometimes it's a mix of being intentional, and sometimes it's just things that come up in passing. I know as a platform, LinkedIn has really, if you're not on LinkedIn, shame on you, because it's definitely, you should be on it today if you are seriously looking to find work. We know 78% of recruiters today are looking at LinkedIn to look for people. So, and it's an easy way to stay connected, and right, just liking a post or making a mention on a post or commenting on somebody's post that's an easy way to stay engaged with that person.
Yeah, and I'd say that to even build on that, it's not even if you're just looking for a job. Very often people will have this mentality that you only use LinkedIn when you're looking to gain something. So either that's employment or it's finding candidates for a role if you're a manager. But you should actually be utilizing it, to the best of your ability all the time, because building those types of connections when you're not looking for work is going to really help you when you are.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, and so you don't know my background, but in 2009, my team was outsourced, right? And we went through the process of getting people ready. And what what I've been, been telling people over the last 10 years is really always be ready to be let go. And how do you do that? You create a big circle of people that you're well versed with, people who like you for you, not because of something for other reasons, but people who like you because they know you. So when it's time for you to go out and start looking for work, you'll have a connection that you can connect with. Right?
Yeah, and what I would say, and I coach people on this all the time, it is the idea that if you're gonna connect with someone on LinkedIn, don't leave it there. It's great to send connections to speakers that may have done a talk and you attended, with old colleagues or professors, anything like that. However, just having them on your connections list isn't enough. You need to engage with them. You need to interact with them. I have so many people that will request a connection, and then I never hear from them again. And then once they're job searching, they come to me and they say, hey, Derek, can you help me with this, this, and this? And I'm like, sorry, how do I know you?
I don't know you. Yeah. Actually, so, just touching on this, when you do make a request to connect with somebody, so Shelly Islinger was one of our guests. So she talks about, don't go with the defaults, customize your messaging. Right? Yeah. And just don't send a blank connection request. Put a message in your connection request. So you're going to let them know exactly how I know you. So I know you, Derek. So actually, I just connected with Derek yesterday on LinkedIn because I learned that we were going to be doing this. And I mentioned, hey, I got connected to you through Andrew, who was already in my connection. And that's how I learned about you and, some of your background and your education. So don't ever go with the defaults, right? Always customize your messaging in there.
Don't go with the default. Don't, just send a request without some type of message. And that goes to anyone that you request with, whether or not it's a colleague or a previous colleague. I imagine your colleague knows who you are. But it can also be a recruiter, somebody that, during the interview you asked if you can connect on LinkedIn. Just have that follow-up for how that person knows you, and maybe even, what you want to get out of the connection.
Yeah.
So if it's a case where you've gone into an informational interview and the person you've interviewed has said, you know what, this person would be great to connect with. I encourage you to do so. Just say, hey, Shelly actually mentioned that you would be a great person to discuss education with, and I would love to connect with you so that we can discuss that or arrange a time to meet in person in order to do that. So having that clear understanding about why you're asking to connect is also a great thing as well.
Actually, it's how this is how we find some of our podcast interviewees, is by, having a past interview. Somebody I've interviewed in the past, ask for a recommendation. Who else would would add value to the community? And it's really just asking and giving the value. So Connell and I are really big on, add the value first. Don't ask for anything. Just give value, give value, give value. One of my online mentors, celebrities, Gary Vaynerchuk, talks about, give value first, consistently give value, and then it'll just come to you, right?
And then to connect this,
yes,
everything that we've talked about, to connect that's why you go to a job fair or an interview understanding what kind of challenges that they have and how you bring that solution, right? Have that kind of mentality that, it's a sales pitch, right? So what are you selling, and what are you going to do for the employer to really make sure that you are that solution that they're looking for?
So I think what gives people an advantage right from the get-go is knowing what the problem is, and knowing, like you said, how they could sell it, right? Like how they could sell themselves as the solution to that problem.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
there's so many things that are going out there. You really want to separate yourself, I want to say, from the herd, because for every job that you're applying to, depending on the type of job it is, there might be another 300 people applying. And how do you really make yourself different? And it's really understanding who you're sitting with. The informational interviews, by all means, there's so much rich information there, but you have to genuinely be interested in getting to know the other people.
Exactly.
So that's been great. So how do you do quickly? How do you connect quickly with somebody? If you were going to, I'm brand new, I'm nervous, I'm shy. What kind of tips or recommendations would you give to me to make that connection quickly with somebody?
In a context of you're just meeting them?
A job fair, informational interview, all the different platforms that you talked about. How do I get over that initial nerve of just connecting with somebody? Because not everybody's overly comfortable face to face.
Yeah, of course. I think there's multiple things that you can do throughout the entire process to make it a little less nerve-wracking. And really, the main thing that kind of comes down to is just preparation.
Okay.
If you know who, let's say you're going to a convention and you know a few of the people that will be presenting, and you know that you want to reach out to them, be prepared with some conversation starters that they're already interested in. So if someone is a writer and they have written a piece, I don't know, for the Toronto Star, let's say, then prepare, but by having those types of conversation starters. So I actually just read about how you did this, and this, and then kind of start it like that. So make it seem as natural as possible. Another thing you can do is to ask questions. Like I said before, people love to talk about themselves, and so
what are you talking about?
Yeah, and it's something that I think both of us have done. We both looked at each other's profile on LinkedIn, so that we would have an understanding about what kind of things we can talk about to ease the initial nerves. And that's something that you can do in interviews too. Is research the interviewer, so that you can prep for questions they might have, but you can also ask them questions and get a better sense of what their experience has been and maybe what their outlook is.
Yeah. So, and this is great. So, and whether it's LinkedIn or any other social platform, we talk about finding those common connections, right? And that enables you to just open up a world of different things. I know my first job, with the large telecom happened because I went to the same high school as the person recruiting me. And I walked in, and that's how, a lot of people who've heard my story, that's how I got in. Was we didn't even talk about the job. We talked about the old high school and our rugby teacher, right?
It's funny you say that. How I got this position was my co-op supervisor from the one that I was telling you about was a connection with the executive director here. And so I saw the posting, and I looked on the poster's LinkedIn profile, and it said, hey, this is somebody that you have a connection with. And so I said, could you make a soft introduction with me? And that's essentially how I got the interview, and then from there got employment. So never underestimate the power of connections and networking. I would like to believe that if I didn't have that introduction, I still would have gotten the job, but it definitely helped add some points in my favor, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely gives you the advantage of, like I said, the 300 that are also applying for your role. It gives you an advantage, right? Building your network. And it comes from, somebody, whether it's a referral or somebody who you've gone to high school with, they know in terms of background what kind of values, what kind of upbringing you have, and that takes all the guesswork out of the picture, right? So you're not just somebody off the street. It's like, who are you? we went to the same high school. We know what the type of values our high school teaches, and that's why I got the role. You got the role because somebody else
vouched for me.
They vouched for you, but it's because the other person already knew what kind of values, what kind of people they associated with, which is so important, right? And we forget that value of just, basic associations can make or break things for us, right? Excellent. So, Derek, wow, so much great information, a lot of insight, a lot of good tips and strategies. I'm just going to give you a minute just to talk about NPower, the organization that you're with today, and what makes NPower different. So this is an organization. Connell and I, we love these guys. They're fantastic in terms of how they train and get people ready for the workforce. Tell us about what makes NPower so different.
Yeah, so to give a brief overview of the organization. So we are a not-for-profit workforce development organization within the GTA. And what we do is we train youth aged 18 to 29 for entry-level IT positions. And whether that's service analyst, digital customer care, or software development and mobile testing, we provide these, we call them students, with a 15-week intensive boot camp phase. And so they learn everything they need to know about how to succeed in an entry-level role. And then my job as a job coach here is to coach them into finding employment. What I would say makes us different is just the idea that we take a holistic approach. So we understand that you can train someone with technical skills, but if they don't have professional development or life skills, they're not going to be successful. So what we do is we have individuals such as social workers, program coordinators, instructors who teach not only technical but life skills, professional development skills, and then employment skills in order to be successful. So we understand that you really can't be successful without all of them. And so we train them in that 15-week program in order to succeed in each area.
Yeah. Oh, and and the way I see it, you're not only preparing them for the interview today and getting into the role in the organization, but you're also preparing them for the future.
Yeah.
And really it's about not getting a job, but it's about getting a career that they can grow into and develop. So yeah, you guys are like, wow, fantastic. I'll include a link to the NPower Canada website.
Yeah, thank you.
As well, so you guys can take a look at it. I know every once in a while you guys are running new programs.
Yeah.
In terms of cycles, how does that work? So is it every quarter, every half a year?
I would say it's probably every 3 or 4 months. We do ongoing recruitment for our programs, whether they're in session or not. And our programs can also be running simultaneously. So although, let's say right now we're offering our service analyst class, we're also offering our digital customer care. So we're constantly recruiting. We're constantly looking for youth who are motivated to work, ready to start in tech, and are really looking for that opportunity to make those connections, get started in a career, and looking to grow within those.
You guys have a pretty high success rate from my understanding.
Yeah. So we have an 80% employed after 6 months of graduation.
Wow.
And a lot of our graduates will move on to mid-level roles within 1 or 2 years.
Wow.
We actually provide a 2-year support that myself and one of my colleagues runs, where we offer career development advice, certain certification training, as well as networking opportunities to really kind of build their skill set and then build their confidence to go into higher level roles that go beyond the entry level.
Yeah. Well, so my understanding is you even have a program for your alumni as well.
Yeah, so we have supports for our alumni up to 2 years and after. And then we're actually looking to start creating programming that will further support them. So things like certifications and whatnot.
Excellent. Well, that's great. So I'll make sure that we share the link with the community. And I know you guys are primarily based out of Toronto, Markham, and Peel region. NPower is really an organization that's across North America, really, right? And so I'll include both links to the North American NPower site, which is primarily in the U.S., and then the Canadian one, so you guys can learn all about it, because, wow. What you guys are doing is fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it, Derek. And that is it for this episode of the Zero to Hired podcast. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll include a link to Derek's LinkedIn profile so you can check him out for yourself, not just me just talking about him. And you can see all the different things that we discussed today. A lot of great value, a lot of great tips, really how to get through that informational process and really nail the job. So thanks a lot for being on our show,
thank
Derek.
You for having me.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode. Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Zero to Hired podcast. Make sure you check out our website, www.zerotohired.com, and download your free resume template that's proven to get results, complete with examples and guidelines. Make sure you tune in as we interview leading industry experts who provide tips and strategies to help you get the career that's right for you.